What's up guys, back with a much requested and long overdue review of the RW Total Body Bar put out by Ron Williams, who gave us the Iron Chest Master. I've reviewed this product, I've used it many times in past videos. I've interviewed the creator, Ron Williams, awesome guy, even off recording, talked to him many times. I knew he was making something like this before it was even released. It's since been released for some time, and many of you guys have written in just basically saying, when are you gonna review that thing? Just never got around to it, finally did. I'm not sure why it took me this long to actually do a review on this, because this is something that hits on all cylinders. If you guys watch this channel, these are things I like. I love resistance bands, and specifically resistance bands with a bar. I also love his Iron Chest Master. So when you put all these things together, this is really hitting up something that I would like. Not only that, and you guys know for anything I pick up, I always try some other creative uses for some products to see how I can combine it with other things. So you certainly will see that in the background of this video. I'm gonna break this down here in a second. If you guys do wanna pick up this product, Ron and his team was very gracious in providing a promo code where you guys save 10% off your total order or anything at ronwilliamschampion.com. That also helps support me and the channel, which is very much appreciated, but at the very least, please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing. Let's jump into this video. Thought it's worth just talking about what this bar is actually used for. There's a lot of unique features about this that we'll break down here in a second. But when I asked Ron, why'd you want to create something like this? He kind of told me, and even with Iron Chest Master, he really wants to invent things that he essentially needs. And so one of the great things about this is it's a very portable and easy tool to actually bring, say, for traveling. He was on the road and doing stuff. He wanted some sort of apparatus or thing that he could actually work his whole body with. So you certainly got the resistance bands kind of checking that mark. You also have the fact that these screws actually come out and this thing can be collapsed, so very easy and kind of portable and transfer. Of course, you're including his patented sliding mechanism that really works the chest really efficiently. I'll talk about that here in a second. And then another thing he stressed when he kind of put this bar together was just safety. So that's kind of the main reason why you kind of have this unique looping system. Also why you have a webbing tube style band versus just pure webbing or even a loop style band. As I said, this bar has a few unique features. Some of them are somewhat subtle, but the most noticeable one is that this comes with two bands, one long one and then one short one. I actually have like a more advanced or like stronger level set of bands. This black one, he actually gave me both pairs. You can buy additional bands if you'd like, but otherwise you're picking from a like medium or like advanced level setting. And the purpose, if it's not too obvious why you have two bands, is that different bands have different functions. You guys are gonna see throughout this video some of the exercises I chose to kind of mess around with. There's a bunch of stuff you guys can do, but it kind of goes without saying some exercises work best with one or versus another. And sometimes you actually can double up both of them for extra tension. It seems kind of somewhat simplistic, but I actually kind of like that. And I don't think I've ever seen a bar that has this where it just kind of comes stock with two bands on there. What I like about this is its simplicity. You can just grab and go, not have to worry about a whole sets of bands, just kind of get creative, working your whole body with just this simple setup. The other thing would just be the actual band quality. So Ron said he chose this webbing over the tube, and he says the tube inside is this high durable style elastic. So not only does the webbing help protect the durability of the actual tubing to last a bit longer, it's also just safer. So if this thing does kind of snap, it's less likely to. Also makes it a little more versatile if you're gonna be standing on maybe some rough abrasive surfaces, you're less likely to kind of damage the tube style band. And then of course you have to talk about one of the most unique features about this bar is the fact, one, that it's kind of flat. So I'll say there's some pros and cons to that. But the other thing is just this sliding mechanism, which is really there, if it's not too obvious, really for your chest. So when you finish off those chest presses, and it depends when you want to do it, you can just hold it out in the end, just do some reps here. You really work in that interior chest, squeezing that horizontal adduction and abduction at the shoulders. And that seems kind of subtle, but when you really do this with tension, I mean, that was Ron's kind of claim to fame with this invention, his Iron Chest Master, that if have never done that thing before and you do it the first time, you're gonna feel some muscles right in the center of your chest that you have not worked before that are really cool. And when I first did this, I was like, oh, it's not that bad. But I think the big thing was I didn't realize how strong I've gotten, because when I jump back on this just seems so much easier. So it's a pattern that I've actually kind of trained and built up. Now you can, based on what I'm seeing on the website, you actually can still swap out these handles. I think for most people, this red one is probably hard enough. Not to mention there's all sorts of ways to do this. If you kind of slow it down, you can do middle reps in between sets. I use this thing as you're seeing in this video, do it at your own risk. I'm sure Ron doesn't necessarily like this either, but I'm just being really creative as I always do with the machines I have. And I try this on my Great Flex. And if you're kind of hanging there dead weight with something, and then I do that squeeze, it was just an extra level of difficulty that was pretty tough. The next thing, which might be kind of a love-hate thing, is really having this flat area of the bar. Obviously, because of the nature of the slide, it's not rounded. And honestly, I got used to it. But certainly for some things, it's not as comfortable as say, like if you're doing bicep curls, it would have been nice to have this kind of rounded. But with that being said, I also do like the fact that if I can do things like kind of a flat, kind of a false grip, you gotta be kind of careful with that, but just kind of pressing flat with overhead presses and chest presses did feel good with this kind of flat kind of surface, just something you kind of have to get used to. The other thing that maybe was concerning at first, but based on what Ron is saying and how long I've been using it and kind of really trying to abuse it, is the build quality. It feels very light. And since it is 2 pieces, Ron does go into, he explained to me why he has this whole 4-screw system, or I should say 6-screw system the way it is. That is to help kind of protect just the durability. It's not gonna break or bend or warp or anything. But he said, I said, can this thing break? How much pressure can this thing really handle? He said, quote to me, this thing is gonna break you before you break it. And he said this thing is made out of the same material they make kind of Boeing airline parts. So it is meant to be very light, but very, very strong material. And I can say so far, I put this thing through a pretty heavy stress test. It seems like it wants to bend, but honestly, it doesn't look warped at all. So that is pretty amazing in itself, just how strong and light this material is. I've had this thing for about over 2 weeks, probably almost 3 weeks. And some thoughts I have on it as far as the things I definitely like about it is its simplicity. And there's, again, this is kind of a love-hate thing because in some ways you're like, oh, I wish I had more bands and more ways to kind of stack things around it. That's kind of a negative for it, which I'll get into in a second. But what I like about just having the small and then the big band is that, as I said at the start or earlier on, that if I can just grab this and just throw it onto something, whether that's my slotting bench trainer, throw it in my car, I kind of got all I need right here. Now, granted, it's not perfect because you might want to fine tune certain exercises, maybe some things you want to make heavier or lighter or whatever. I'm kind of using platforms and foot plates, and I kind of position myself, my feet a certain way to kind of make the tension just right. But I will say, just like everything, I've said this many times in the channel, no matter whatever tool you got, if you're creative enough and you do enough work, change up the exercise variables, you can definitely 100% work your whole body with this. So the biggest thing I like about it is its just simplicity. Now, getting into things I don't like, or at least things I might want to see kind of improved if it's possible, is first and foremost would probably just be resistance. And that kind of goes without saying. I kind of knew that based on the fact that these are tube style bands. This is one of the preferences why I kind of like loop style bands. You can kind of increase the tension. Of course, you can get like thicker style material in bands like this. Can't really do that with this. Also considering that, you know, one of the reasons that Ron picked this was because of safety. It's not going to snap on you, less risk for people kind of getting hurt. And honestly, for most people, they might not need that much heavier weight, so I kind of understand where he's coming from. But it would be cool if he made maybe an extra strong, kind of durable tubing, or maybe some other ways to kind of add on additional tension, because one of the problems is you only got so much space here. So if I do add or buy more of his bands and loop them on, there's only so much you can do. Unless there's some other trick I'm just not realizing, but that would be cool if there's some sort of other extension mechanism so I can just make things a little bit heavier. So that's my initial thoughts. You guys will definitely probably be still seeing more of this in the future because this is just one of those versatile tools, especially on my slotting bench trainers that I'm gonna be kind of taking advantage of. Like I said, it's also one of those things that's just super convenient, trying to just grab and start doing a few reps without having it kind of setting it up. So I'm sure you guys will see this in the background or me doing some stuff on this. I do like this thing. It's another just unique tool for your toolbox. Also considering the price isn't so crazy. It's a pretty versatile item. But that is it, guys. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, feedback. Again, if you guys want to save 10% off this or anything off RonWilliamsChampion.com, just use the promo code Mike. Saves you 10% off your order. Greatly appreciate at the very least for watching this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.